start.
Hello, I'm here at the Hyatt Regency in Kathmandu, Nepal. 3 years ago, I was told to go to Bali, Indonesia and Nepal, and I was supposed to do meditation at Kopan Monastery here in Kathmandu. But due to the first earthquake, my flight was canceled. But I was still being told I had to come here. It was probably just the day before. They did allow me to still come to fly into Nepal, and the day prior to me flying, I finally got the okay that the hotel could pick me up, and I stayed here at the Hyatt. I flew into Nepal, and then the next day I had arranged to go to the Buddhist monastery the following day for meditation. I went up to the monastery and I meditated for about 2.5 hours, and I was in a completely, I don't even know how you describe it, divine space. I had no stress, no worry, no fear, nothing. It was just a complete place of peace. And then we came back to the hotel. Once I got back to the hotel, I went back to my room. It was on the 4th floor, and I was looking out through the window and taking photos, and it was at that moment the building started swaying back and forth, and I was like, there's an earthquake happening. But I wasn't fazed by it. I wasn't scared. Everybody outside was screaming and running, and they were frantic. They had already experienced it. I mean, I'm from California, so I've experienced earthquakes, but this one was like more intense and a lot longer. I just stayed calm, kind of just telling the earth, hey baby, it's okay, just like relax, this doesn't need to happen anymore. And then it stopped, and I just sat for a second. I was thinking I should probably tell my family, and that I'm okay. So I just texted them saying there was an earthquake, I'm fine. And then I just sat there. I wasn't sure what to do, so I thought, well, maybe I'll go outside. I'm walking outside, and there was a French guy, and he was swearing so much. It was like, F-bomb this, F-bomb that, we're gonna die. And I was completely calm, and I was like, it's okay, everything's gonna be okay. As we're walking, we could see huge cracks in the side of the wall. I come outside and I hear my name, Skyana, Skyana. I'm like, who's calling my name? It ended up being the driver from the night before who picked me up from the airport. He was making sure I was okay, and that was my brother Santos. And he sat with me until he had to drive people back to the airport because everyone was in a panic at that point and nobody wanted to stay. But he ended up introducing me to my other brother, Sanjay, and this is where we sat. I sat with him and his friend, and they were teaching me Buddhist philosophy. And as we sat here, there were a lot of aftershocks. But everything was fine. Then the next day I set up to go to the monastery again, and I went back to Kopan, and this time I had a conversation with one of the monks, and I was a little jittered, a little fearful. I don't know, for some reason I thought my driver was going to take off on me, and maybe he was, but I said to him, you're not going to leave me, are you? And he was like, no, I'll be right here, and I meditated for 2.5 hours again and went back into that space. But this time, as we were driving down the mountainside and I'm looking over the city, something just literally cracked inside of me. It was just like, and I just cried. I couldn't stop crying. All I kept thinking is, who is helping these people? This is such a huge city. Like, who's helping them? And I just kept crying, and I cried all the way to the hotel here. And then I went to have lunch and I was still crying, and the manager was consoling me. Like, everyone was so sweet. Like, from the minute I land, even on the airplane, the whole trip until I left, like, everyone always took care of me. Like, the Nepali culture is amazing. They're so super sweet and full of love that it's like you could come here alone, but you always leave with family. He was consoling me, and I was just like, who's helping the people? Because of that, some of the staff took off, I think, to go help their families, and because the next time I came into the restaurant, they all pointed at me, and the manager was like, looked frazzled, and it was like a whole new staff. But, you know, everyone has to help each other, so we were still taken care of. And so once I got back, and I was still crying, the manager said, you know, why don't you go back to your room, take a rest? And I was in my room, and I'm still crying, and then that's when my peep, Neb, kicked in, and he said, what is the crying solving? And I said, nothing. And he said, well, what are you going to do about it? And I said, I'm going to help the Nepali people. And I kept crying, and he said, what is the crying solving? And I said, nothing. And he said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to help the Nepali people. In that time, my brother Santos had called me about 20 times, and he kept saying, Skyhana, come down here, I need to talk to you. And so finally I came down here, and we actually met in this spot as well. And he said, I know what Sanjay was trying to explain to you about the Buddhist philosophy, and it had to do with controlling emotion or understanding emotion. And I said, gosh, today I just can't stop crying. Something happened. I cracked open and I just keep crying. And he said, what is the crying solving? And I said, nothing. He goes, well, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, that's what my peep just said to me. I said, I'm going to help the Nepali people. And he said, good. And so that's when I knew that I was coming back, and I was going to help in any way that I could. And then I went back to the US, and then from there, that's when I received the next part of my journey, and then I came back.